no beer. To all my brothers, sisters, and here we say, hey, hey, cheers.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Smoke Show. After a week hiatus last week, everybody's favorite podcast megastars, Dark Eye and Drury, we're back. Ryan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. What an intro there. Yeah, it's nice to be back after taking a little week off, and there's plenty to talk about in the sports world. And I'll let you lead us off with your beloved Maple Leafs. They are having a tough stretch.
Well, yeah. And yeah, good intro. I mean, I couldn't just call myself a megastar. I had to include you in it, but I could have said like Batman and Robin type thing, but.
Well, fair enough.
Drury, you're wearing all green. I was a little disappointed we didn't have the show last week. I had a whole Leafs outfit. I had my St. Pat shirt. I had my green Leafs hat. I even had a little green beverage ready to go, but glad everything's all right, and we're back for another week. Before we dive into too much, I want to take a second to recognize a gentleman that was a pretty important guy in my life that passed away last week, actually 2 weeks ago now. Joseph McCabe. He was my English teacher in my grade 11, grade 12 year of high school. And he was the teacher representative for the senior boys hockey team for the LaSalle Lancers out of Sudbury. Absolutely beautiful gentleman. Couldn't say enough good things about this guy. The things he did for his students as hockey players. He was a gentleman second to none. Some stories I could probably get away with telling now about the gentleman. I couldn't tell when he was still a teacher. That's for sure. But Sudbury, LaSalle High School in Sudbury lost a good one a couple weeks ago, and just wanted to take a second to acknowledge him. Joseph McCabe, rest in peace. You'll be sadly missed, but fondly remembered. So yeah, great gentleman. Yes, Leafs Nation. Okay. Leafs Nation. We're not on a bad stretch because we won our last game, and the good thing about having a short memory is you forget the run before that.
Do they, though?
No, not really.
Because my impression is that everybody is looking for Frederik Andersen's front door with pitchforks and torches lit.
Yes, that is very much the feeling on social media. That is the climate on social media. And it's a little bit unfortunate. I guess that it actually supports my recency bias, actually, because unfortunately, Leafs Nation is forgetting how much of a warrior Freddie has been for us since he's came to Toronto. Forgetting that over the last two playoff series, Frederik Andersen is got a 270 goals against average, 918 save percentage. Last year, he was like 918, a 143 goals against average, roughly. Don't quote me on those numbers. And, a lot of people saying it's Freddie's fault we haven't won in the playoffs yet. I get it. I get the frustration. We've been a long suffering fan base for a lot of years. And the goaltending is the easiest finger to point. So you know what? When you're not making those big timely saves, when you got a penchant to let one or two soft ones in every now and then, it's not going to take long for the fans to turn on you, unfortunately. And that's kind of where Freddie sits right now. Leafs Nation, I think if you polled them right now, 90% would gladly see Freddie traded for a bag of pucks. And unfortunately, that's very much the wrong idea. I don't think Freddie's lost it. I don't think Freddie just woke up one morning and forgot how to stop a puck. Clearly, he's struggling with a few things. Obviously, confidence being one of them right now. Maybe he's not tracking the puck as well as he normally does. And when you're not confident it leads to very easy mistakes in your game. You sit too far back in your crease. You're not coming out challenging. You end up doing a lot of belly flops, which I've seen a lot out of Freddie lately, taking himself out of position when he's basically uncontested on a play, no traffic in front. And when you're on your stomach doing what I like to call the starfish, chances of stopping a puck are slim to none. One of the things that James Reimer used to do a whole lot towards the end of his tenure in Toronto. But I would I would urge Leafs Nation to put the pitchforks away, to have a little bit of patience. And I know that's a hard ask right now. We want to win. Our window to win a cup is now, and fans are hungry. But we need to understand that Jack Campbell at 29, I believe, 27, 29, has only played 60 NHL games. There's a reason for that. Now, he may have developed later on in his career, like a lot of goalies do, former first-round pick. But again, you guys are, Leafs Nation is ready to run Freddie Anderson out of town for a guy that's played 60 NHL games. I love what Campbell's doing. Campbell looks like a goalie who can go on a run here. And it would not be unheard of for a goalie like Jack Campbell to come out of nowhere and lead a team to the promised land. But let's just look at the times that's happened in NHL history. You can count them on one hand.
It's pretty rare. I mean, the last time I can really remember, as I think back on all the most recent Cup champs, I mean, you're looking at Tampa, Vasilevsky, Horse, St. Louis, Binnington, who came in the middle of the season, but he's become a horse. Holtby, horse. Corey Crawford, horse. Jonathan Quick, absolute horse. Matt Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury, both within a system that really benefited them both, particularly Murray at the time, but they were the bona fide guys, and Murray was the one that really took 70% of those starts and ran with it. The last time I can really think of a guy kind of coming out of nowhere, because he was still a really unproven commodity, and it showed when he left this team and tried to be a starter in San Jose, was Antti Niemi. And Niemi was playing on one of the best defensive teams we've seen win a cup in a while. That Blackhawks team, and all throughout that dynasty when Crow was in net for them after Niemi left, like, it showed just how much the team really helped elevate his game. Now, Niemi played really, really well throughout that playoff, but you see what happened after he left the comforts of the Windy City and played for a bit more of a wide open team in San Jose, where you could argue all those years where San Jose's cup window was open, he arguably maybe cost them some of the series wins, including the 3-0 lead on LA that they blew, obviously. Yeah, everybody that I don't disagree that Jack Campbell deserves more game time, and that would probably honestly benefit Freddie, because he said and Keefe even confirmed that he still isn't feeling 100%, which confused me a little bit, because I mean, with your goaltender, why would you play him then? But I feel like maybe they didn't really have much choice, and if he tells you he's good to go, and we all know Campbell's injury history, you're going to play him. Yeah, his numbers over the last 6 or 7 starts are not good. It's really ugly. He's got, I think, an .886 save percentage over his last 7 starts. That's not unreal by any means. That's gross by 80s standards. And I understand the concern. But again, and I know some people hate when I bring this up, but just the parallels I see between my Caps team and this Leafs team now and where they are is so stark. And I mean, you think back to 2018 when the Caps finally did the thing, and there was a similar situation. Braden Holtby was not playing well. He had a stretch of 6 or 7 games just like this, where he had a sub 900 save percentage, and people were going, enough's enough. Like, it's been 7 or 8 years now of Holtby, like, can't do it. Look at him collapsing. And Philip Grubauer got a ton of time in net. And then when they reach the playoffs, all of a sudden, a guy that's not really a starter, you know, barring that he's playing pretty well in Colorado, faltered. A guy that was not, you know, used to being a starting goaltender, faltered and let in a lot of soft goals against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then Braden Holtby went back in and took over, and some magical stuff happened. And I still believe that Freddie is capable of that. I really, really do. Like, I know I brought this up before. This is a guy that was within a whisker of a Stanley Cup final in 2015 when he was still the backstop of the Anaheim Ducks, and they didn't know whether Freddie or John Gibson was, you know, going to be the guy. They ended up picking John Gibson, which, grand scheme of things, was the right choice. This guy was in double overtime of game 7 against the Blackhawks and lost. He was right there and had really good numbers. And like you said, Dark Guy, the last 2 playoffs, his numbers have been really good. And they've just gotten beaten by teams that outwilled them.
Well, and I mean, look at it this way. If the Leafs get a little more offense against Columbus last year, they win. And
Matthews is the only guy scoring.
Nobody's able to bring up Freddie's never won anything for us. What I don't understand, and this is kind of where I'll never understand, I'll never be able to wrap my head around it, is why it has to be one or the other. So, like, you go back to, you know, Leafs Nation with Jonathan Bernier and James Reimer. Jonathan Bernier had a penchant for letting a couple horrible goals in. One of his worst claim to fame was there's probably about 6 games in the span of about 2 years where, like, the first shot on goal, he let it in.
Yeah. Or from the red line.
He fell out of favor with a lot of Leaf fans. On the flip side, you had James Reimer, who was, you know, in net for the epic collapse. You know, had some rebound control issues and
well, 3 of those goals were not his fault. The Leafs defense.
No, I'm just talking on a whole, not in his time in Toronto. His biggest problem was an inability to control the rebound. Yeah, that's fair. Which led to his demise. But there was never ever like a feeling, or it was very rare from anybody in Leafs Nation who would be like, you know what? We have 2 very capable goalies, and in the right scenario, they can both be very valuable for us. No, it was either you were team Reimer or team Bernier. And that's kind of what's happening right now again. It's like people are just turning their back on Freddie like that. I get it. Yeah, he's had a bad stretch. He's had a rough year this year. But he's not a horrible goalie. Like, you can appreciate Jack Campbell and what he can bring to this team, especially right now in his ability to spell Freddie, to let Freddie get some time to heal up, work through some stuff on the ice with the goalie coach, work through some stuff off ice with the sports psychologist. That is what Jack Campbell is bringing to us right now. And that could be just as valuable as anything else, because if we get a well-rested, refocused Frederik Andersen back for a playoff run, look out. And in the event that Jack Campbell just takes the reins from here on out and runs with it, great. We've got Frederik Andersen as a backup.
Yeah. That's the way you kind of have to look at it. And that's the way that, you know, and I wasn't in favor of it. I understood why Barry Trotz did this, but I was forced to be in favor of it with that Grubauer-Holtby situation. Right away, you know, and you could, if somebody wants to scroll back 3 years of my Twitter, I said game 1 against Columbus, I didn't agree that Grubauer was in. I thought it was disrespectful to Holtby. I understood in retrospect why they did it, and it doesn't matter now because everything worked out okay, didn't it? But
absolutely.
I don't understand the screaming for, I understand the want for Campbell to get more games. Of course, he should get more games, and he'd have way more games already and probably be less rusty in a sense if he wasn't hurt all the time. So there's thing number one.
Yeah.
I don't understand the screaming of some Leaf fans for Campbell to become the new starter. It maybe for a little stretch here as Freddie tries to, screw his head on straight again or whatever is going on. Not 100% healthy. Okay, get healthy. Campbell's healthy now. Maybe run him a little bit while he's hot here. But this guy has a penchant for getting injured all of the time. Yes. And that's why he's a 29-year-old former 11th overall pick who, you could argue was probably about a season away from being written off as an all-time draft bust, which is, you could almost argue he still kind of is, simply based on where he was drafted. And he is a huge reason why a lot of teams for the next few years, really, I think until my Capitals in 2015, didn't take goalies in the first round. It was literally the Jack Campbell effect. I remember reading a story in the Hockey News called the Jack Campbell draft effect. And teams did not want to take goalies in the first round. I believe Washington was the first one after that to take Samsonov, 23rd overall or whatever it was. Like, if you think that Jack Campbell is capable of being your starter, I'd call you borderline crazy. And really, I understand the desperation and the angst and the anxiety of the fan base. I understand long cup drought. There hasn't been much success. They haven't won a playoff series in a really long time. That grinds on people. Like, I understand. Maybe better than a lot of fans. I mean, the Caps would win some playoff series here and there, but they flame out all the time to teams that they should have clobbered. Like, that grinds on you mentally going, oh my God, like, they can't get it done. Well, this guy's still here. It must be their fault. It's their fault that we can't do it. I mean, it's a team sport, man. This isn't tennis. Like, you don't fail because you alone missed a return shot. Like, you have teammates out there. And hockey is one of those sports too, outside of the goalie to a degree, where it's so hard for your favorite players to have a definitive impact on more than, 30% of the game. If you're a really good player and you're playing 22, 23 minutes a night, so almost the entire rest of the game, you're not even on the ice. It's not like basketball where LeBron will play 45 minutes and dominate. Austin Matthews can't do that. Now, Freddie is on the ice the entire time, and yeah, he's having a really bad stretch. I still think he's absolutely the best option to go deep in the playoffs. And like you just mentioned, in years past, if other guys had stepped up and scored a goal once in a while, or they had better defensive structure, which the good news is so far they seem to have, the Leafs might have won a couple of those playoff series.
Well, and that's kind of where I do sympathize with Leafs Nation a little bit is that, we had Freddie as a backbone that was there night in, night out through some very poor defensive Leaf teams, very poor systems.
He led the league in saves like 2 straight seasons.
But it's like now that we actually have an improved defensive system. We have an improved defensive core. We're reducing high danger chances. We've reduced the amount of shots we're giving up every game. Freddie's not there. And I think a little bit of that comes to, so I can sympathize with some of the frustration, but people have the blinders on right now. Like, Freddie makes a huge save, and like 10 seconds later, I'll be like, how come Freddie never makes a big save for us? Like, did you not just see that save on the 2-on-1? It's like people right now, it doesn't matter how many great saves Freddie makes. The minute that iffy goal goes in, they're there to pounce. And that's the way it is for the life of a goaltender. A forward makes a mistake. He's got two other linemen or a winger and a center to bail him out. If they don't, he's got 2 other defensemen to bail him out. If not, you still got the goalie. But if you're a goalie and you make a mistake, it's in the back of your net. So I think people forget that a little bit. And I've said this before. Right now, a lot of Leaf fans are looking at a game where Jacob Markstrom stands on his head, or Mike Smith stands on his head, or whoever stands on his head. And they're like, no, that's the one. It was Connor Hellebuyck, the game against Winnipeg the other night.
Yeah, he was great that night.
Hellebuyck should have went for PED testing after that game. Like, the amount of saves that he was making, it was unbelievable. He was just unbelievable. And all through the game, people are like, well, Freddie can't make a save. Hellebuyck's doing it all night. What's the difference? And so I've said it before. Teams will come in and get amped to play Toronto. Whether people realize it or not, the whole world knows Toronto's the center of the hockey universe. Connor Hellebuyck probably gets a little more amped up to play Toronto on a Saturday night, knowing that it's on a nationally televised broadcast, playing against an original six team with a history as rich as the Maple Leafs. He probably gets a little more amped up for that game than he does, say, I don't know, a game against the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people realize like how much of an effect that actually might have on individual performances. And if you're not the type of person who's watching a lot of hockey games outside of the Maple Leafs, it's very easy to say, why is it every time a goalie comes in and plays against Toronto, they stand on their head? That to me, I would love to see a full study done on this. Like, really get a sports psychology just into it. Do a survey among the players, because I bet you I would be proven right 100%. Fact of the matter, Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, New York Rangers, players are going to get up for those games more than they might the Florida Panthers, Arizona Coyotes, San Jose Sharks.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's the Hockey Night in Canada factor too, right? I mean,
Yes.
Canada, everybody knows, is the most passionate hockey nation, and the Leafs and Habs are the two most celebrated television commodities, basically for the entire existence of Hockey Night in Canada. And so, if Saturday night, Bell Center or Scotiabank, everyone knows a ton of eyes are going to be on that game. I mean, even just as an example, I'm pretty sure he has the second most career hat tricks in his career, Ovi, against Toronto. He loves playing in Toronto and Montreal every single time he wants to put up a performance. I mean, like, and you think he's the only one?
You look at a lot of players, their best performances or their career highs are against the Maple Leafs. So part and parcel, that might be because, well, they were such a brutal franchise for a very long time, and maybe it was easier to rack up points against them.
Sure.
However, I still believe, like I said, you do an investigation, you do a full investigation into this, you get sports psychologists involved. I bet you find something out pretty interesting about playing against a Canadian team on Hockey Night in Canada. That's not an excuse, but when you start piling everything on, so like if all you're doing is watching Leaf games, and maybe you don't even watch during the week because of work, but you always catch that Hockey Night in Canada game. But then if you don't watch Connor Hellebuyck's next 2-3 games where he lets a couple softies in, it's easy to say, oh, well, he's a Vezina candidate, Vezina winner. Look at him. He makes all the important saves when he has to. Well, for the amount of times I saw Connor's making all the saves, they lost. The Leafs still won the game. So
it's one of those things too, where you look at a guy like Hellebuyck, who at the time, like, he was a younger guy at this point, but even when Winnipeg was in the Western Conference Final and lost to Vegas, I mean, and that was Vegas's first year, which is still insane to think about, but everybody picked the Jets to win that series. I know I did. I picked every team to beat Vegas.
So did I.
I picked every team and somehow still won my work playoff pool. Even though I never picked Vegas to win a series, I dominated the east side of the bracket. That's what happened. But I was fully convinced it was going to be Caps Jets, which I would have been fine with because we would have torched the Jets too. But everybody, like, he let in a lot of bad goals in that series. Yeah, he was a younger goalie then. But even this year, I've seen him play some games against Montreal even where he's let some not great goals. I watched Andrei Vasilevsky about a week ago. Tampa came back and won the game 4-3, but it was 3 Cobb in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat were dancing. It could have been 7-0 after the second period because Vasilevsky screwed his head on straight, but 2 of those goals were awful goals.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be said. And that's Andrei Vasilevsky.
Well, and that's
Guys,
it, right? So
I don't know. I just don't think this guy is that bad of a goalie. And really what the most encouraging thing I guess I can say is I definitely think at the top of his game, he's good enough to win this team a Stanley Cup. And I shouldn't even phrase it like that because the goalie alone can't win you the cup. You need good goaltending. Yeah, obviously. But he is good enough to be the goalie of a Stanley Cup winning team.
absolutely
I really believe that. I really do.
I agree. And I mean, we've been talking about Freddie for almost a half hour here, so I'll try to move it on a little bit. But in the end, I think Leafs Nation just, you need, it's okay to like both. It's okay to say, hey, Jack Campbell's playing great for us. Awesome. And it's also okay to say, hey, you know what? Freddie, been here a long time, not really playing all that great, but let's give him, let Campbell run with it for a little while. Let's see if Freddie can get his game back, get that confidence back. It doesn't have to be Jack Campbell or Freddie. It can be both. If you want to win a cup, it's going to be good to have both in case you have an injury. Does Freddie come back next year as a free agent, with this being his free agent year? I don't think so.
It's going to be hard because
I don't see how they do.
They'd have to move bodies.
It's
like Kerfoot is not going to be a Maple Leaf next year.
No.
Like just straight up. And I don't know that anybody is, going to be overly upset at that, but that's $3.5 million right there to play with. Now, is that $3.5 million that's coming off the cap enough to spread out across a raise for Freddie, who makes $5 now? You're going to assume a raise is going to start with a 6, right? 7 would be pushing it.
Why does it have to be a raise though? The way Freddie's playing right now, he might be doing us a favor.
No, because I don't think he's going to go, yeah, I'll take $5 million again. He's going to ask for something with a 6 for sure.
On a 1 year show me.
I don't know if he takes it. He's a veteran guy now. Guys like that don't sign for a year. But my point is, and if his agent's any good, he's not doing that. I don't
want to say Taylor Hall, but
what he's better than Taylor Hall, but in terms of the usefulness of the two players. But is that $3.5 million enough to spread across a raise for Freddie and a raise, probably a much more significant raise for Zach Hyman? Like, the Leafs have cap issues. We all know this. So if Freddie is winning 1 round enough, it is 2 rounds enough. I think most people would probably say the Leafs have got to make the Final 4 because they're good enough to beat any of these teams in the Canadian division.
I think they've proven that already.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And I mean, it's easy to just look right in the right direct rear view mirror and go, oh, well, they've lost 6 of 7. Well, other teams have lost, 5 of 6, 6 of 7 too. The Calgary Flames were a tire fire a week ago. Yeah. Everyone was like, oh, right off the Calgary Flames, they suck now. No way they make the playoffs. Vancouver won. Would they win 4 or 5 straight? Well, all of a sudden the Canucks are 4 points out of the playoffs. Like, it's the wave is ridiculous. The Leafs have been in first from the word go. whether they finish first or not, I don't think it matters. It'd be disappointing, I guess. I mean, Edmonton's right there with them, but like, is Edmonton markedly better than the Leafs? I don't think so. I could tell you what, I'd rather have Freddie Anderson in that than Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. Yeah. I don't care what the numbers say over the last 2 weeks. I'm going to tell you I want Freddie instead.
Yeah.
So bar Connor Hellebuck, I think Freddie is the best goalie in Canada.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So part of this too has been I've been trying to as the week went on, questions that I saw brought to me on Twitter and stuff to remember them, jot them down, and hopefully address them on the show. And that was one of the ones I've seen was a lot of people right now are saying, the Leafs are talking about adding a forward, maybe a defenseman, but people are asking me, Dark Guy, should the Leafs be looking at going for a goalie right now? No. The simple answer is no, because you're not going to get the return on Freddie right now if you're trying to make that move.
It doesn't make sense for them.
And basically, like, mid-season big goalie trades pretty much don't happen. Not anymore.
Yeah, when was the last time that ever happened?
So
Luongo, I think. Was that during the season even? That might have been the off season.
I'd be tempted to even say like the last time there was like a big name goalie trade would be like Patrick Waugh.
Patrick Waugh. Yeah, exactly. And that was in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
So I should say as well. Obviously, I would concede that Jacob Markstrom is probably better than Freddie Anderson. So, but if Freddie's the third best goalie, okay.
So
on this team, he's good enough to beat two Canadian teams and get to the conference final.
A trade's not likely to happen. Is Freddie going to be back next year? Well,
that's a more valid question than are they going to trade for a goalie?
I really honestly don't see a way, unless they go out and win a cup and one or two people become expendable, and that's not Zach Hyman, by the way. But unless they go and win a cup this year, and they want to keep that core together and re-sign Freddie and give him a raise, your number one priority if you're Kyle Dubas has to be re-sign Zach Hyman. This is a guy that I believe, is
they got to keep him.
Starting to get the recognition that I think most of Leaf Nation gave him over the last couple seasons. Now he's just starting to get it on a global scale, because Zach Hyman is a Swiss Army knife of a hockey player. He does everything really good. I don't want to say he does anything over the top extraordinary, but he does
forechecking.
Well, yeah. He does everything really, really good. And he's a Swiss Army knife of a player. And it kind of leads me to another question that I had seen a lot of people saying, Zach Hyman the other day, down to the fourth line, and people kept using the word demotion. What did Zach Hyman do to deserve this demotion? It's not a demotion, Leafs Nation. The fact that you can take Zach Hyman and put him on the top line to get Matthews and Marner going. The fact that you can then move him to the second line to get Nylander and JT going, and then move him down to the third line, and then move him down to the fourth line. It wasn't a demotion. That lineup Saturday going into that game was the most perfectly balanced line I've ever seen the Leafs have.
I agree.
That was one of the best balanced lineups. You looked at every line, and there was talent on every line. There was scoring and playmaking ability on every line, and there was a go-getter, a puck retriever, a gopher on every line. And the fact that Zach Hyman was on the fourth line was to try and spark that line, to spread some scoring out. It wasn't a demotion.
Yeah, it was more of with a guy like Hyman, it's more of an indictment on the other two guys, because Keefe knows, and Babcock knew too, exactly what this guy can do and what he's all about. And he is the type of line mate that drags you into a fight. And I don't obviously mean literally a fight. Just he drags you into the battle. Come on, guys. I'm going to get this puck. Like, you better be right behind me type thing.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And Keefe obviously saw a matchup that he liked with the other lines, with the way they were constructed, and thought, I can take Hyman away from Austin and JT, and I can put him down here and try and get these guys contributing a little more. Because if you can get your third and fourth lines going a little bit, and not even necessarily scoring, but just preventing chances, which Hyman is also elite at, by the way, and is a big reason why he's going to deserve that raise, then that's a good thing. And you're right, it's not a demotion. You know who he really reminds me of? And again, I'm sorry, Caps comparisons. He reminds me a lot of Mike Knuble. Just a guy that was not highly skilled, but he would go and bang in 20, 25 goals. It turned out he was a decent offensive contributor, grinded in the corners. What an annoying guy to play against, a buzzsaw down low. If you remember, Mike Knuble was Ovechkin's line mate when he was popping 65 and 55, 54. Like, the Backstrom Ovechkin Knuble line was gross. That line was gross. Hyman reminds me so much of that guy. Just tell me what to do, and I'll do it at 120. I might not be better at picking a corner or dangling around a guy than almost all my teammates, but I'm going to work so much harder than every other player on the ice, and I'm going to drag everybody else along with me. That's the type of guy, and there's a lot of value in that. There really is.
So, Ryan, I need to apologize. I just got a message. We need to get you a swear jar.
We do?
Yes. So it's been challenged to me that there needs to be a Ryan Drury swear jar. Every time you compare the Leafs to the Capitals, you have to put $5 in the jar.
I'm not doing that, man. I'm going to get broke. No, I'm not doing that. I understand, but do you know why I do this? It's because I really feel like the two fan bases are so similar, just in the journey through, oh my God, we suck. Wow, they're starting to get better. Why can't they win in the playoffs? Like, the timeline is so similar.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, they're terrible, but we're okay with it because Ovi's here now.
Yeah.
Same thing with Matthews. Well, worst team in the league, but we got Austin Matthews. Oh, wow, aren't these young guys exciting? Our future might be neat. We should really be winning a playoff series. Why can't we win? It's the same thing. That's why I do it so often. Really, you know what I do? I do it to encourage and inspire some positivity among so many of my friends that are Leaf fans.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, I know, but if the Caps can win, you gotta imagine that the Leafs can win too. The Caps are a laughing stock. They have the worst regular season record it was their first year. Okay. Worst regular season in hockey history. They won 8 games, which is what everybody thought Vegas would do. Like, they were horrible. They almost don't exist. They had to make a gigantic trade where they fleeced Montreal, of all teams, in the 80s to just get fans to come back. The team almost doesn't exist. Like, they were irrelevant almost their entire existence for most people till Ovi showed up. So think about that. Like, at least the Leafs, at least you guys had, multiple trips to those conference finals. Obviously, it would have been nice if they worked out different. Really good coaches, lots of good players. Like, the majority of the time that was all happening in the early 90s to early 2000s, I mean, the Caps made that weird Stanley Cup run and got dummied by the Red Wings. Other than that, like, they were the Arizona Coyotes. Nobody turned on the TV and watched Capitals games. Their biggest star was Peter Bondra, very good player. He should go to the Hall of Fame.
Hey, Ally Afraidy, come on now.
Dude, come on. Ally, yeah, Steve Konowalchuk. Like, Peter Bondra was maybe Kolzig, I guess. He won the Vezina that year. Other than that, like, back then, who the hell, average hockey fan, could even name 3 other Capitals players?
Yeah.
Bondra, Kolzig, Gonchar? Like, there was nobody else, right? At least the Leafs, like, you guys have a huge fan base. There's like a therapy session after everything, right? Like, no one cared that the Capitals sucked. No one cared they existed.
I got news for you. Nobody still cares.
Well, that's just not true. That's not true.
Long story short, for Leafs fans, it's okay to like Jack Campbell and Freddie Anderson at the same time.
You're gonna be fine.
I don't think Dubas is silly enough to let Zach Hyman go anywhere. I think that's going to be his major priority. And here's the last I'm going to say on Freddie. Right now, he's being run out of town with pitchforks and people calling for his head. If he's hoisting a cup at the end of this season with Toronto, Freddie is going to be the most popular name amongst newborns in Ontario and in Canada.
Oh,
and it's going to be the most popular. Frederick Anderson is going to be the most popular tattoo in tattoo parlors across the country. Telling you right now.
If he wins the cup, if the Leafs win the cup this year, I think that everyone should write him an apology.
I came close to tweeting that. I came close to tweeting that.
And I did tweet that when Holtby won. The second that I believe Backstrom gave him the cup, I tweeted, I want everybody to write this man an apology now. And that's the same thing. If he wins, they should build him a statue on Legends Row that day.
Well, if Freddie's doing
for the
this
abuse
at the end of the year, there's going to be a lot of people scrolling to delete tweets. That's all I know.
Oh, absolutely. I always supported Freddie. It's like, oh yeah, are you sure? Yeah.
Okay. Before we end up talking about the Leafs for the entire show,
isn't that what you wanted?
What?
Isn't that what you wanted?
Well, it's kind of what I want, but I figure, we do watch other sports, follow other teams.
Yes.
Nothing to talk about interesting out of the Washington Capitals, so we'll just move over to
7 in a row.
We're day five of NFL free agency. We're day 5 now. Yeah.
Might be deeper than that, but yeah, that sounds about right, actually.
Yeah, no, I
Thursday,
am right.
Thursday it opened? Yeah.
I am right.
Okay.
It's day 5. Big spenders, your New England Patriots.
Oh my God.
What was it? $237 million or $257 million they spent in like 2 days?
Yeah, across they didn't really spend that because, as we all know in football, that's the total value of the life of if every contract gets played out to the end, which never happens. But I believe it was something like almost 100 and something million guaranteed.
Yeah.
Jalen Mills, I'm excited about that. Obviously, really excited about Hunter Henry. Okay. Cam coming back. I guess I'm okay with it, simply because while I still don't think he can throw the ball that well anymore, it has to be said he had the worst receiving core in football by a landslide. And that was without Edelman most of the year. No tight ends, like Gronk leaves and the tight end position is non-existent. So to get a guy like Hunter Henry, who that surprised me a little bit that he would leave I almost called them the San Diego I'm sorry for any San Diego fans, the LA Chargers, with that great young quarterback they have. I'm surprised he left. I guess they didn't want to pay him. I'm very happy he's coming to do it. Jonnu Smith, he's one of those guys that might be a bit of a reclamation project. Like, he had some injury problems in Tennessee. Really, I think where he's going to shine is blocking, which we really need to, because New England's running game, well, is never good. Driven even more home by the fact that last year our quarterback led the team in rushing yards. So that's obviously a great recipe for success. No, I'm excited. Like, it's weird though, because I already knew this. And like I said to you during the Bills run this year, and I think they're close. I don't think they're far from winning a Super Bowl here. I didn't care. Like, a lot of Patriots fans were like, oh, they suck now and blah, blah. I was like, shut up. All of you shut up. We've been the most spoiled sports franchise. Like, why are you complaining? You just watched 20 years of unprecedented winning that might not ever be repeated. Like, don't complain.
My question to you is after watching your team spend that much money, do you actually believe you are any better off than you were?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you believe you're more than a third place team in the AFC East?
Yes.
You're crazy.
I think that I'm not going to be surprised if they miss the playoffs, but if they could get in as a wild card. I think they're better than Miami. I do. I think that they have the potential to be better than Miami. I'm not going to count out Uncle Bill until he gives me reason to. It's weird, like you pointed out. I've never seen spending like this in New England, but that's what all that greatness breeds. We didn't have to spend all this money.
My point is, for the amount of money they spent, the needle went from here to maybe here. Like,
well,
for
time
that
will
amount
tell.
of money, I want to see my needle go whoop.
Well, time will tell. And again, I'll just say, I think particularly the defensive additions and Mills, I'm really excited about that. He's a Bill Belichick player. And I mean, obviously Patrick Chung just announced his retirement, who was a great Patriot. He'll get into the Patriots Hall of Fame, obviously not the NFL Hall of Fame. I'm not an idiot. But Chunger was such a great player, like just the most meat and potatoes Bill Belichick defensive player ever. He'd get burned for a few big plays, but then he'd make an incredibly huge play in the playoffs. So I think that defensively they're going to be a lot better, and they're going to have to make an effort to really not have the addition of those two tight ends. Particularly a guy like Hunter Henry, who's a top 5 tight end in the league, in my opinion. They're going to have to make an effort to make those not work out.
I think, Belichick's trying to catch lightning in the ball here. He's trying to relieve the two tight end glory days of Gronk and the other guy who shall remain nameless.
Well, yeah, we don't need to bring him up.
I think that's what they're doing. But for me, honestly, you guys spent all this money, and I don't see any marked improvement. Now, I am very disappointed that the Bills were not in on Henry or Juno Smith.
Saying that, then how are you saying the Patriots aren't much better then if you're that disappointed the Bills didn't get them?
No. What I'm saying is that was an area of need for the Bills, in my opinion, was to improve at the tight end position.
Yeah.
Where New England's probably best improvement is going to come from, it's going to come from within. And a full season with a healthy Damian Harris as your running back, you're going to see a much different looking team on the offensive attack. But I still stand by the fact that
I hope
they went and spent all this money, and I don't think they're that much better off than they were. Now, for the Bills, yes, I would have liked to have seen a Juno Smith or a Hunter Henry come in, but we made some good moves on our own, right? Mitchell Trubisky, I understand why we got him. A little bit of a head scratcher for me. I could have lived the rest of my life with never seeing him in a Bills uniform, but he's a backup quarterback. It is what it is. Emmanuel Sanders.
That's a great signing.
I think still has a lot left in the tank.
Sure.
Especially when you're putting him into a lineup with Josh Allen, and he's now going to be taking some coverage away from Stephon Diggs, because you cannot let Emmanuel Sanders prance downfield unattested. He's just going to carve you up all day long. So Emmanuel Sanders, that was a great need to move the needle forward for the Bills. I would have liked to have seen a tight end, but hey, we didn't go that route. We had some people we needed to bring back, and we got that done. But for me, the Bills did more bringing in one player in Emmanuel Sanders than New England did by bringing in everybody they did.
Well, I mean, that's up for debate, and we're going to have to see how the season works out. Like, I don't think that they can, take first place from the Bills, but Bill Belichick is the mastermind head coach at taking unheralded guys. And I mean, aside from in this case, a guy like Hunter Henry, Johnny Smith, obviously the potential's still there for him to, become a star. He hasn't yet for me, but those guys aside, Mills and some of the other additions they made, particularly even on the offensive line, I love it. Yeah, it's a lot of money, and it's weird to see, and Bill's never had to spend this type of money before. Is it all going to work out? All of them aren't going to work out. That's just the nature of sports, the numbers game. You bring in that many new bodies, there's no way they all work out the way you envision. But if there's one coach that I'm going to trust in evaluating a bunch of guys to bring into a team that went 7-9 last year,
Sean McDermott, I agree.
No. Because he's not won anything. Good coach. I think he's a good coach. He hasn't won anything. It's Uncle Bill. And he has taken guys, even guys that were star players that got cast aside over the years. Rodney Harris. He brought guys into New England that were complete misfit toys. Lawyer Malloy. Man, remember that guy? Oh, unbelievable. Teddy Bruschi even. Uncle Bill likes his little toy chest, especially on defense. And that's why my hope is that defensively there's a big improvement here. And I think realistically, the only reason that people like yourself and others are going, I don't think any of this matters and blah, blah, is because Cam is still the quarterback. That's what it is. If Cam wasn't the quarterback and they went out and they got even a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick or something, people would be going, boy, the Patriots offense, blah, blah, blah. But because it's Cam and he really faded down the stretch and got hurt again and can't really throw that well, but to his credit, had no one to throw to, everyone's going, well, how much better can they possibly be? It's still Reclamation Project Cam. So I'm interested to see. I'm not hoping for anything, and I don't think any Patriots fans should be. Even with all that money spent, it's not our money. I will be pleasantly surprised if they are a wild card team. If they win 10 games, I'll go, that's a real improvement. But We'll see. They're not beating the Bills.
I think they finish. They're going to finish below 500. You heard it here first. Patriots still suck. Where there's smoke, there's fire. The still suck statement is a little rich after just 1 year of bad football, and they were still 7-9. So still is a little much there. Four straight Super Bowls with no win. We'll talk about recent history. We don't want to be Habs fans here and talk about how amazing it was back in '93. So we'll go with the past season. According to the past season, the Patriots still suck. Until they don't suck again, they still suck.
Well, then, if that's what we're doing, the Bills are choke artists. I'm only joking, but yeah, it's Kansas City even too, man. They made a lot of big moves. They brought Thuney in, and even Seattle finally screwing their heads on straight and addressing their offensive line to help Russell Wilson out. I mean, there were a lot of impressive moves in free agency. There's going to be some trades. The draft is going to be interesting. There's a lot of quarterbacks available, so we're going to see, if 3 of them work out. There's
a couple big offers made for Russell Wilson over the last little while from what I had seen too.
Allegedly so. The Bears apparently saddled up 2 firsts,
3.
Another pick, and was it 3 first
rounders?
Yeah, and I mean, I just think that Seattle, I think old Uncle Pete there, who of course, soft spotty coached the Patriots, they finally were like, okay, we have to do whatever Russell wants here and help him out, because no matter what they did, and like my best friend's a huge Seattle fan, is like, I think they should trade Russ. And I'm like, are you what? And he's like, yeah, because, I don't know if the team's that good, and the defense sucks, and if they got some picks for them, they could really improve and build a better future. I'm like, a better future with what? Like, what are you talking about, man? It's the NFL in 2020. Yeah. The defense just has to be okay. If you can't even like sneeze on a wide receiver anymore, it's pass interference. It's all about offense, man. Like, and you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. What is he? The second best quarterback, third best quarterback in the league, I guess, if you're going to go Mahomes, Rodgers, Russ, so I'm like,
Josh Allen's
not better. So if Russell Wilson says, I get sacked way too much and I'm kind of tired of it, you have to do whatever it takes to make that guy happy and keep cooking with Russ. And it appears they've done that. And I'm really interested to watch what the Seahawks do this year, because they're in a division that's not going away, right? I mean, Arizona's just going to get better. Kyler and Hopkins making magic down there. The 49ers are going to bounce back. I think the San Francisco 49ers are going to have a big, big year. They need the Prince of Persia down there to screw his head on straight too. But the NFL is always the hardest, in my opinion, to read in terms of offseason moves, because you look at it and you go, yeah, this is going to be great, and this guy's going to fit in well with this team. Sometimes they just don't. And with 53 guys on a roster, coaching turnover, it's hard to read. It really, really is. But I think the Patriots are a little better. I don't think they'll make the playoffs.
They're a little better.
They're a little better.
The amount of money, it was very underwhelming.
It's an eye-popping amount of money. To be fair, they had a ton of cap space that they've never had. I still think Buffalo,
which is something Buffalo doesn't have the luxury of right now.
And they shouldn't. Their team's incredible. They're like a little chunk away.
We've got until Saturday or early Sunday morning where we can free up about another, I think it's about 3.5, maybe 4 million in cap space to make another move, providing we pay some signing bonuses before the deadline kicks in and they become fixed salary. So the Bills can save themselves and make a couple moves here to open up some cap space, and hopefully they do, because an extra 3.5, 4 million could bring another valuable piece to a potential Super Bowl run here. But, we'll see what happens. Transition over Boston. I love hating on the Bruins. I love hating on the Patriots.
Yeah, you do.
One Boston team that I do not hate on, is the Boston Red Sox. I've had some amazing experiences in Boston. 2 years ago, I went and watched the Jays in Fenway Park against Boston. I had some of the most polite experiences I've ever had with Boston Red Sox fans than I could have ever imagined. them wanting pictures with Dark Guy. Absolutely amazed that I was at Fenway. I had a great time. But you know who does hate Boston fans? LA. Did you see the billboard that the LA Dodgers fans put up right at the corner of Fenway Park?
I didn't see this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Jesus. Los Angeles Dodgers fans raised a whole bunch of money. This fan group from LA raised a whole bunch of money, and right at the corner of Fenway Park, at a main intersection at the ball diamond, they put up a massive billboard that says, thank you, Red Sox fans, for Mookie Betts. Much appreciated.
Oh, unreal. That's awesome. Yeah, man. I'm not going to say that I feel bad for the Red Sox. I don't. They they print money. They won a World Series 3 years ago. Like, I'm not like, let's not shed tears for the poor Red Sox fans, right? I will say though that I think that the Mookie Betts trade, as much as I like Verdugo and think he's a good player, that might be one of the worst trades in pro sports history.
Sorry, Ryan. Dear Boston, thank you for Mookie Betts. Sincerely, Dodgers fans and at Pantone 294, whoever that is.
Probably the person who organized it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that trade is horrific. I remember the day that got announced. I was driving home. I was listening to Overdrive, and you'll be familiar. Ray Ferraro is a huge Red Sox fan, and he jumped on with Hayes and the guys and was beside himself. There's never been maybe outside of Wayne Gretzky, because and it was maybe on a smaller scale because the NHL, especially at the time, did not garner as much attention as Major League Baseball. But to me, there's never been a bigger or more blatantly money trade of all time. Like, the Dodgers moving Mookie Betts was strictly and only about saving money, and the return shows that. Totally. Like, because they gave Chris Sale that massive contract with a huge signing bonus, and they, Fenway Group, who, and this is where I guess I feel a little sorry for Reds, maybe a little bit. Fenway Group owns Liverpool, which is a gigantic soccer property, which they have heavily invested in since they bought them, and they've won a lot in recent years. Yeah, it's a money saver, and it's frustrating because they definitely have the money and could have kept Mookie around and paid him the $30 or $35 million a year that he's gonna deserve. The trade bit them in the ass right away, and he won a World Series again. And he'll probably win at least one or two more. The Dodgers, I think, are the best poised of teams we've seen in recent years to go back to back.
Oh, and even their young guys are coming up. Gavin Lux at second base.
Gavin Lux. And then it's not fair,
It's not.
They're so far over luxury tax, and that's a discussion for another day. Fixing baseball. I don't even have so much a problem with teams like the Dodgers going that far over the tax. It's the cheap ass owners of the other, teams that spend $22 million on their payroll. Pittsburgh and
Oakland.
Oakland's payroll's like 70 million, dude. Now, you're sidetracking me. If you want me to have a rant about John Fisher and his $2.8 billion and he won't re-sign Matt Chapman and Matt Olson, and I'll throw up at the end of this year, we can have that conversation. But it's the, Tampa, Arizona, Miami, the Marlins. The Marlins made the playoffs last year, expanded playoffs. This is a team that's won 2 World Series. They've existed for 20, 25 years? They've won 2 World Series, and the second after they picked the trophy up, that wonky looking trophy, which, by the way, can we finally fix the baseball trophy? It sucks. They lift the trophy up, and ownership was like, get rid of this whole team.
Yeah.
Let's not even bring back one familiar face for the fans when we raise the banner.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bizarre. That is what it should be. And they should force all these owners, if you don't want to spend the money, then don't own a baseball team. Do you not understand how bizarre it is that the NHL has a salary floor and MLB doesn't?
Yeah.
They make like $8 billion more than the NHL, and the worst NHL team, like the Arizona Coyotes, are paying at least like what's the NHL salary for, 62 or 63 million? Doesn't matter. They're paying that. That's 3 Pittsburgh Pirates. That's embarrassing. Yeah. And have you seen Pittsburgh's ballpark? My best friend went there 2 years ago and was like, this is the nicest baseball stadium I've ever seen. They have a beautiful ballpark, great sports fans in Pittsburgh, and trust me, it pains me to say that to give Pittsburgh credit for anything, but I said it. They got great sports fans down there, and their team craps on them.
How do you think it felt for me, how it tasted complimenting Boston Red Sox fans?
Yeah, we both need a tea here. Rinse it out.
I almost choked on that coming out of my mouth, but I got to say, Boston Red Sox fans were amazing.
It is bizarre to me that Major League Baseball has not set an $80 or $90 million floor.
Yeah.
So ridiculous. The Marlins, for instance.
Well, they've talked about trying to get a little more parity into the league, and
never going to happen.
Well, and that's how it can happen, though. Force teams to spend some money.
There is going to be, and it pains me to say this, and you know this, Dark Guy. I got my Oakland gear on. I'm a newer baseball fan. I've always watched baseball, never really been a fan of it. Too boring, too slow. Now I'm very interested by it. It really intrigues me. It doesn't make sense to me that we just came out of a lockout shortened season. Now, I know coronavirus, of course, played a factor, but they could have been playing in April last year. Now, we're going to go through this season, and then the CBA expires. There is going to be a strike again in 2022. And let me tell you, you know this, and many people that know me know this. There is nobody I've enjoyed crapping on more than Gary Bettman over the years. For all of the lockouts, the completely missed season. Insane. Baseball? These guys are an embarrassment to the game, to the fans, and to all of the greats that came before to pave the way. Because if you could rewind the clock and tell Babe Ruth that guys are making 30, 35 million, Trevor Bauer, $40 million a season now, Babe Ruth would quit playing baseball, become a scientist, and try and figure out a way to become immortal so that he could reap the benefits of what these pigs make now. And I don't mean to blame the players. The players aren't the problem here because, and we've seen it in the NHL. Remember when the salary cap first got introduced? What was it? $39.5 million,
yeah.
I believe. And tons of guys. I remember Sergei Fedorov had to shave like $11 million off his salary to fit in the new system. And they did it. And then as time went on and they rebuilt the business and figured out how to attract some more fans and get better numbers, the cap kept going up and up and up. So in baseball, it makes sense that based on inflation and league-wide revenues, which are astronomical compared to the NHL, it only makes sense that guys are starting to make $35-40 million a year. Pretty soon, like, you're going to see guys like Juan Soto blowing by that. And there's maybe 5 owners in baseball that will pay him that. Is it going to happen in Washington? Maybe.
Well, I mean, look at Fernando Tatis Jr.'s contract.
Oh, he's barely played 3 full seasons. He hasn't played 3 full seasons. Yes. I think he's played 180 games. It's $340 million. Now, I personally think, based on what we've seen, he's going to be worth every penny of that, or at least 90% of it. He's a freak. Him, Soto, and Acuna Jr. are doing things through the age 21 season that, like, Ted Williams did. Like, they're in such ridiculous company based on their early returns as players.
Yeah.
And you got to think a guy like Acuna is sitting there kicking himself. He signed for $100 million. Now, he's got $100 million. But, geez, if he waited, he could be making like 4, you know?
I'm laughing. I'm over here laughing because I got my cash fantasy baseball league draft coming up this Saturday. And just so happens that
buy DeGrom.
I have Acuna and Tatis Jr. as keepers.
Oh, yeah. Dude, and there's it. How many keepers do you get to keep? 2? 6. Oh, so there's your team for
2 pitchers, 2 batters, and 2 the manager's choice.
Who are the pitchers that you have that you kept? Just out of curiosity.
Bueller from LA.
Walker Bueller, beautiful.
Yeah. Walker Bueller, Lucas Giolito.
Oh, Giolito, White Sox. Nasty changeup.
Yeah, and then I kept 4 batters, so I kept Acuna Jr., Tatis, and Cripes. I can't remember who else I kept.
Doesn't matter.
That's a pretty good start right there.
A decent start. Go get DeGrom and you'll be fine.
Nolan Arenado Jr. and
Arenado, yeah.
And then I can't remember the other one.
I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah.
Because if you want to see an example, now you've got me really fired up here about baseball. If you want to see an example of the greed and pure idiocy of baseball owners, you need look no further than Nolan Arenado and the Colorado Rockies. This guy is bar none the greatest player they've ever had.
Yeah.
And you look back at
Troy Story.
Yeah, Trevor Story is very good.
Trevor Story, sorry.
He's not Nolan Arenado. He's very good. He's going to be gone soon too. It doesn't matter. Him and German Marquez are both going to be gone. So Rockies fans, you think it's bad now, buckle yourself in. Of course, I disrespected the name of legendary Canadian Larry Walker Jr., of course. Larry Walker, pardon me, not Junior. Said Junior too many times. Larry Walker, of course, Colorado. But Nolan Arenado, you could argue anyway, is their greatest player like ever in team history. Like, unbelievable numbers. It's incredible. And remember, the Jays even were a beneficiary to a degree when they got Tulo. This is a team that has great fans, a great ballpark, super thin air that baseballs rip through, one of the most hitter-friendly park in the league. It sucks to be a pitcher there. It's incredible to me that they had Nolan Arenado, and they've done this all throughout their history. Burley, I believe, was a guy that they let go. You look at DJ LeMahieu.
Yeah.
He might win MVP this year. Then you look at Tulo, now Arenado, and it's going to be Story and Marquez coming up. Nolan Arenado making lots of money. They sign him to this giant extension, and then not only do they trade him, and God, of all places, to trade him to St. Louis as if they need help.
Yeah.
You know? They trade him to St. Louis, and they gave St. Louis $50 million to
take him.
take him. that's backwards, guys.
Yeah.
You should have been getting the $50 million.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The general manager and like the owner had the weirdest conference after and said, "Oh, I've not thought about firing our GM. I've thought about firing myself." Do that. Are you kidding? And then
you just paid $50 million to get rid of one of the best players to ever play the game.
How is this? How are we even having this conversation right now? Lord Nolan Arenado should be in spring training wearing a Rockies uniform with a good team around him. No, I can't do that, though. We got to pay to get rid of him, and ultimately down the road, it'll cost us less. And that's the dumb mentality.
They replaced his bat with, no offense to CJ Cron, who is probably going to hit 40 homers in that nice thin air. But you're talking about like a career 230 batter here.
Well, and he's never going to replace what Arenado did defensively, one of the best defensive players in all of baseball. It just doesn't make sense. Baseball's got to fix a lot with the game. They got a lot of owners who are cheap and won't satiate the fans with good winning baseball. They'll do it. What sucks too is general managers are so smart in baseball. They might have the collection of the most smart GMs in all of sports. And you'll look at a team like Oakland or Miami over the years, and they'll build up this unbelievable farm system and win. They'll make the playoffs once or twice, but then when all those players that did that are due a pay raise, they sell them all and go, well, see, we don't need to invest a bunch of money because every couple of years we'll make the playoffs and maybe go on a run. That's not how you should treat fans.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. You know who's dancing? Mets fans, because Steve Cohen finally came in and got rid of those losers, the Wilpons, and immediately splashed cash all over the place.
Well, and it's not bad being a Blue Jays fan right now either.
No, so, it's not. It's not.
Shapiro and Atkins came in after a very successful run and basically dismantled the team and didn't want to spend any money. They sent everybody packing.
And it made sense at the time.
Concerns that should they have another extended run of success, make a whole bunch of revenue, that they could recycle the scenario. But I'm not going to go that far because I harped on them to every single one of my friends who kept saying, have faith, have faith, have faith. Well, who is one of the people who promotes having faith in the Leafs, and I'm the most positive Leaf fan you'll find on social media, I had no faith in Shapiro. I had no faith in Atkins. I saw what they had done in past scenarios. But with Cleveland,
that makes sense though for you but to say that.
I have to finally give them credit because Guerrero is starting to mature. Bichette's starting to mature. They've got a nice core, and instead of ignoring it, they went out and got Springer. They went out and got Kirby Yates. They made some moves. They've done something to position this team for a lengthy run of success. So
absolutely.
If any of my friends that were watching that I talked to about the Blue Jays over the years are watching this, this is me eating a little bit of crow because Shapiro and Atkins finally did something. We'll see if the rotation is enough. I don't think it is.
I don't think so either, but based on what I've seen so far in spring training, pretty impressed with Robbie Ray, Steven Matz.
Come on. Listen, Robbie Ray,
I know.
We're talking about only a couple seasons away from being one of the best lefties in the league.
I know, but he's had a lot of command issues, and he's seems to at least have somewhat solved those. And then you look at a guy like Steven Matz, who still has some potential. He has been throwing a ton of strikes. I'm happy about that. My biggest concern is the health of Nate Pearson and how much they're going to have to potentially go to full bullpen days. If Ryu gets hurt, that's lights out. They do not have a deep rotation.
So that's where I can still take a little bit of a shot at Shapiro and Atkins. Taijuan Walker comes in last year and does nothing but dazzle in his time in Toronto.
He was good, yeah.
I'm not gonna say he wasn't pitching like an ace.
No, he was reliable though.
But you could pencil him in as your number 3 starter all day long.
Yep. Now he'll be like a number 5, 6 starter in New York.
But you just let him walk. Like if you watched his social media, like he wanted to come back to Toronto. That's the feeling I got.
Yeah.
He wanted to be in Toronto.
Seemed that way. I'm gandering that they're going to ride with what they have right now. And if an opportunity presents itself, which based on the conversation we just had about people being cheap, it will, they will make a trade if they think that the team is hitting well enough that they can out-hit a lot of problems and they're in contention around the All-Star break. If a trade opportunity presents itself, Cincinnati, and they can get a guy like Luis Castillo, they'll do that, or they'll ride this out, have a decent season, focus on getting guys like Vlad and Bo Bichette hitting more consistently and improving defensively. The team really, really needs to improve defensively. Then in the offseason, they'll go after maybe a guy like a Luis Castillo. That's probably how they're envisioning it. And they didn't want to lock in a guy like Walker and not have room for him potentially down the road. I would have liked if they re-signed him, especially now that Nate Pearson's got a groin issue and Kirby Yates has now, I guess, exploded the flexor in his arm.
So here, this is where I say, why wait? Okay, why wait? You've got George Springer leading off. Okay. I think there's no argument there. George Springer's your leadoff guy. Yeah. So then you're putting, say, Marcus Semien or Bo Bichette in the 2-hole.
Yeah.
Vladdy Guerrero.
Yeah.
3 or 4.
Either him or Hernandez. There's your cleanup.
So, I mean, okay, let's just for argument's sake. So you go George Springer.
Yeah.
Marcus Semien. Bo Bichette. Guerrero.
Yeah.
Hernandez. Grichuk.
Gurriel.
What do you need to wait for?
Yeah.
Biggio. I hadn't even mentioned freaking Biggio yet.
And then Kirk or Jansen catching.
Okay, so what as a manager or ownership do you need to wait for? Go get a goddamn pitcher.
I think that they're waiting for the right trade with a guy like a Castillo to crop up where they could swindle Cincinnati into potentially paying for some of his salary, because the Jays did, to their credit, just spend a lot of money, and hopefully get to a point where the trade market is, in their mind, soft enough where they don't have to give up as many A-grade prospects as they maybe would with a team like Cincinnati that would want that, of course, in the offseason. Because what does that trade look like? Like, you're looking at probably a guy like a Jordan Groshans, and then they can't trade that guy, Martin. But yeah, maybe somebody asked for that depending on the pitcher. I don't think for Castillo, but you're looking, I read it in The Athletic the other day, hey, maybe this is a trade where it looks like a Groshans and Alek Manoah. Oh, I don't know, man. Do you want to give up an Alek Manoah? We saw what happened when Toronto gave away a similar pitcher years ago named Noah Syndergaard. Now, R.A. Dickey was a good soldier, but I think that they would probably like to have that one back. And that wasn't the Shapiro Atkins era. That was still Alex. So is that something you want to do right now? Or do they wait a little bit where it softens up, where a guy like Castillo wants out? They can.
That's where I think this management team did make the mistake. Is they could have accomplished that without trading anybody. Well, I'm not saying they didn't try, and I don't know. I wasn't privy to all their phone calls, but you look at some of the names that were available.
Yeah, Odorizzi is the guy that everybody is kind
Paxton, Walker.
Yeah, but Paxton, man, that guy is...
You don't think he would have jumped at an opportunity to play in Canada?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, the guy is hurt. I feel bad for him too because I think he's a good player. He's hurt all the time. Like, yeah, the Jays pitching situation is one of the most intriguing storylines of this upcoming season to me, because do they just ride it out with all the arms they added, mix in a lot more bullpen days? Guys are going to get hurt. We know that.
We already saw that with Kirby Yates out for multiple weeks with a flexor.
Yeah, he's going to miss opening day. Yeah. So do they ride it out, or do they go in this season and make the big splash to add to the rotation? It will depend on how Merriweather, Matz, and Ray look. If two of those three guys even give them really solid pitching, not all-star level, not Ryu, just solid pitching where they could win 6-4, then they'll ride it out. If not, and they've only got like two guys going, Ryu and one of Matt's, Ray, Merriweather, Pearson, we hope.
Yeah.
Then maybe they go, okay, we really, really need to get somebody in here. I'm interested to see what they do.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna wrap the show up with this. Your theory of the Jays riding their pitching and winning games 6-4, I bet you is an idea supported by a lot of Toronto fans who would love to run Freddie Anderson out of their building because winning 6-4 isn't the same in hockey.
No, it's not. It doesn't quite hold the same water, but when you walk into a baseball season and you can squeeze by with the rotation like this, maybe that's a little bit more palatable. But the Jays, I'll say, just based on their batting lineup, I'd be kind of disappointed if they weren't a wild card team.
I think they will be, and that offense is too potent. Even when you start looking at potential bench players that you have to your ability, having a guy like Rowdy Tellez who's got the power to come in and hit you a walk-off in the right scenario. Like you said, we hadn't mentioned Jansen yet. Kirk.
Yeah, Alejandro Kirk, the big boy. Yeah, there's maybe an area just quickly where the Jays could utilize their depth, because now they've got Jansen, who's just kind of an all-around decent catcher, good defensively.
They've got
Kirk. He's way better defensively. They've got Kirk, who they could play at like 5 or 6 in the batting lineup because he's just got so much pop. Not in the best shape. The wear and tear of everyday play would get to him. And then you've got Reese McGuire, who's very good defensively, not a very good batter. Could they use their catching depth to entice a starting pitcher out of a team that could really use a good young catcher? That's something that they could use to their advantage, because if they can get a guy like Castillo, he's the guy that seems very obvious to me, and not give up Simeon Woods Richardson or Alek Manoah in the deal, that is a win-win-win for the Jays.
I agree. And you know what? Considering Kirk and Dark Guy have similar physiques, I'm not going to hold it against you that you said he's out of shape.
To catch consistently. The guy can crush baseballs, and he's going to make way more money than me, so who cares?
Oh, Ryan, as always, it was a wonderful episode. I have so much fun doing this with you every week,
dude.
or when we take a little hiatus there. But thanks so much, Ryan, for being my co-host on another episode of the Smoke Show. Thank you to the FHN Network for having us on their network. A bunch of beauties all over there. Tyler Fines, Matt. You guys are great. And Matt, well, thank you to our producer, Matt, the producer, sitting behind the sidelines, listening to us babble back and forth 2 hours, hour and a half every week. Much appreciated. And last but not least, huge thank you to the fans who tune in every week. Glad you're loving the show. Everything's good in Leafs land. Everything's good if you're a Bills fan. Everything's great if you're a Jays fan, and as always, sucks to be a Capitals and Patriots fan. So where there's smoke, there's fire. And until next week, have a great rest of your week, everybody.